What kind of accountability are we saying is appropriate here? Because the media just went out there and said, oh, this was a tussle. No. A guy got jumped because he was trying to defend his
There was
friend.
a little bit of a dust-up between Lyle and Chris. Now we get to this story in Las Vegas. The left will cover crimes very differently, simply depending on the assailant. It has to fit in with a narrative or it gets ignored, like you saw with the Nashville Manifesto. That was memory hold really, really quickly.
Yep.
Or it gets misrepresented. So this just happened in Las Vegas late last week. A white teenager, Jonathan Lewis, was beaten to death by 15 black students. And I say that because it matters, and because if you were watching this on any of the mainstream outlets, or even your local news, that, by the way, is run by 3 major corporations, you wouldn't know this. White teenager Jonathan Lewis beaten to death by 15 black students at a Las Vegas high school.
A teen severely beaten by more than a dozen students has died in the hospital after several days on life support.
Now, again, to provide some context here so people don't just say, well, okay, what was he doing? Could he be a white supremacist? Let me read you a quick, this is from News 18 local news. November 1st, over 15 juveniles brutally attacked 17-year-old Jonathan Lewis near Rancho High School after he sought to defend a younger friend who had been robbed by the group. This group already committed a crime, robbed a younger friend, and he went to them saying, hey, can you give it back? Can you give it back? At which point, the group of entirely black teenagers, 15 of them, beat him to death. Here is a video. Again, I warn you, you're not seeing anything super graphic, but just the idea of it should disturb your soul. Here's a video of the beating taking place partially. That's enough. You guys can find most of it on there. And again, what matters with this, people say, well, how do you know that's true when you talk about Israel-Hamas? Well, we're using the Hamas videos, right? They want you to circulate them. They're proud of killing innocent people.
Yeah.
These videos are these are not being taken by people who are trying to stop an attack.
No.
These are being taken by people who are hoping to get social media clout. They want this video out there. Teenagers, these bullies now, they want to gain notoriety, just to be clear. Now here is the media's coverage of the story. See if you can spot what's omitted.
Metro says about 15 kids were involved in a fight that has left one student hospitalized with critical injuries.
A teenager is fighting for his life after being beaten by 15 other kids near Rancho High School.
Metro officers responding to reports of a student fight across the street from Rancho High School. The investigation revealing the victim got into a physical altercation with 15 people before cops arrived.
Now from the family of Jonathan Lewis, a Rancho High School student who has died after a severe attack by 15 other students last week near the school.
And what really bothers me is that female reporter saying a physical altercation. No. An innocent man was beaten to death.
Yeah.
A couple of them said fight.
Yeah. That's not a fight. He was beaten to death. He was beaten to death by jackals who felt enabled to do so because they would get off consequence-free. Consequence-free, at worst, have to go to a high school guidance counselor and tell them about how they were never hugged enough. Let me read you some media headlines here. Las Vegas teen beaten to death by mob of attackers outside of high school. Teen beaten near high school has died from injuries, father says. Vegas teen beaten to death by mob of 15 bullies outside high school after standing up for smaller friend. Nowhere is race mentioned in these stories. Imagine if we were, and this isn't just whataboutism, imagine if you had the inverse.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was 15 white guys who beat up one black kid. I don't know that you can find that at a school in the United States in the last 15 years. I really don't. I genuinely don't. And there are many, many stories to this effect.
Yeah.
And this is not, to be clear, not pulling a Nick Cannon and saying it's because of the melanin in your skin. It is because not only of a culture, but and I don't just mean the culture, hip hop culture, what a lot of young black boys who are often fatherless look up to as an example, but because of white culture, of saying we need to stand down and check our privilege, where we tolerate behavior that would be tolerated nowhere else. Nowhere else would people run interference for this. And we'll get to the overall crime stats that show this is a common occurrence right now in the United States, particularly in schools.
Yeah. Well, and it's the glorification of this kind of behavior and no accountability for anybody involved that really is the problem. Like you said, they want this out there. They want to take video of this and say, look, see how cool we are. These people need to be going to jail.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you just killed somebody.
They need to be tried as adults.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there was video there that we're not going to get too far into that because we don't want to show everybody, but stomping on somebody's head against the pavement as 4, 5, 6 other people just in that 1 second are also kicking, and others waiting to come into the wings to see if they can jump in on the act. Like,
Sounds
what
like
are
intent.
we doing here?
Yeah, it does sound like intent.
What kind of people are we raising in society, and what kind of accountability is culture? Whether it's black culture, white culture, American, whatever, what kind of accountability are we saying is appropriate here? Because the media just went out there and said, oh, this was a tussle. No. A guy got jumped because he was trying to defend his
There was a
friend.
little bit of a dust-up between
Skirmish.
between Lyle and Chris.
A group of jackals decided to kill another person. Maybe that's a little closer. I don't know. Maybe workshop it, see if you can come up with something. But something a little bit more along those lines would be more accurate.
These kinds of activities, for example, the knockout game, they used to only take place with gang initiations, which were incredibly rare for the worst of the worst among society. Now these are just mainstream games, like they're memes, like planking. Yeah. But hit the like button right now. It helps with the algorithm. But if you automatically assume the race of the perpetrator when it's never mentioned, if you read a story like this and you see no mention of the race, don't you make some assumptions now? Let's be honest. That's the problem. That's the rebound effect. You are creating a generation of people who are going to be more racist, or at the very least more suspicious. When you raise an entire generation of people who feel guilty for something they cannot control, checking their privilege. Look, sometimes we get guff people go, Crowder's a cuck. He said he's not proud to be white. I'm not. Just like I'm not ashamed to be white. I have no control over it whatsoever. It's something that doesn't really matter to me. I never sit there and go, oh man, look at my white skin. I'm really proud of the fact that I have white skin.
I've done that.
But I'm not going to look at it and say, oh my gosh, I need to go to the soup kitchen for extra hours because I need to check my privilege. It could not be less relevant. This is not the first time this has happened. Let me read you some other crimes where the race was omitted when the perp was black. Right here you have one. You have Ethan Liming suffered broken skull bone in brawl outside LeBron James's I Promise school. The perps were 3 black men.
Oh, whoops.
Oof.
I guess LeBron James isn't as great of a professor as we had hoped for.
Yeah.
Basketball.
Celebrity schools, LeBron James school.
Whatever.
Barry Manilow had one. All right. It was a school for the closeted homosexuals. All right.
Really?
Yeah, the jawless closeted homosexuals. I'm just saying, all celebrities have these weird schools now. Here's another one. Teen girl allegedly slugs Asian woman, attacks witness in possible hate crime on NYC subway. Okay, the perp was, of course, a black teen girl, and she didn't allegedly slug an Asian woman. She did, and then she attacked a witness. Here's another one. Woman spits on subway rider in suspected anti-Asian hate crime in Park Slope. Hey, guess what? The perp, of course, in this instance, was a black woman. This has been happening across the country, really, since we've had the soft on crime. What?
Oh,
I don't know why he's
back.
Why are you here? Why is this? Why do we have Mel Gibson head?
And if you get raped by a pack of n***ers, it'll be your fault.
Hey, whoa.
Oh, Mel.
That's the
Son of a
that's
gun.
the overreaction that we're talking about. The pendulum swings too far the other way, and then you end up with Mel Gibson head.
You do end up with Mel Gibson. Really quickly, they listed the Asian person in the last 2 examples and didn't list the perpetrator.
Exactly.
Because they were pushing this
Stop Asian hate.
Asian hate thing, right? Where they're trying to say like, hey, Asian community, we're standing with you, unless of course you're trying to get into Harvard. We're not really standing with you so much. And make it seem like white people were the problem. Why is it possible that we can live in a country where you can't just call it out across the board? We covered this with the Nashville thing. They called it out immediately when it was anti-black crimes, right? When somebody's shooting up a store because they're racist. And I understand that. Do it. But when it's the other way around.
Remember when we were live, Fort Worth, the shooting?
Yeah.
It was like catnip,
The
and then it was
minute
like,
it was a
it
black
turns
kid.
out it was a black kid.
Boom.
He just came in and he was a bully, and we didn't really have that. And they're like, you don't know anything about this.
They're like, we'll give you more information later. By the way, back to Donald Trump.
Yes, back to Donald Trump, who's orange, said Eminem. Oh, what a cipher.
Yeah.
Orange
Then there was, like,
porridge.
Yeah.
Wakusha, it's an SUV. It's not even a person.
It's not, yeah, exactly. It's true. It's not even. They don't even list the color of the SUV.
Right.
They don't always miss the race, though.
No, they don't always list.
they don't always
Here's the
miss
thing:
it.
if they never listed the race ever, fine. But they do it all the time.
They do it when it's a white perpetrator.
Yes, exactly. Right here.
Yeah.
Let's read.
Yeah.
These are from People, NPR,
Spoiler.
and AP. White teen allegedly tried to drown black child in racially charged attack. 3 white men are found guilty of murder in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. White man will stand trial for shooting black teen Ralph Yarl, who went to wrong house, judge rules. But now we have some examples of the selective. I don't even want to say selective bias, just lies. You're just dishonest. The way when someone crafts a headline deliberately omitting information to mislead you, it's a lie. And here's how we confirm that it's a lie. Let's look at some of the crime statistics. The FBI 2022 violent crime stats. Black Americans make up 13.6% of the population and 43% of the violent crimes. The victims of violent crimes, 57% of them are white. In San Francisco, and it's really hard because if you actually look at the FBI, the DOJ, the CDC, at one point in time, they stopped recording. Once they realized that politically it was tough for them, they stopped recording the racial gap between crimes. So you could find out the perpetrator of a crime, the race of the perpetrator, and you could find out, in some instances, the race of the victim of a crime, but you couldn't find out if the racial makeup of the perpetrator was different from the victim. So you couldn't find out who committed which crime to see who was the victim at the hands of which race. We used to have those stats. I believe it was 2014, 2016 when they stopped recording them. So I acknowledge that because this one comes from a small sample size where they did conduct this study. In San Francisco, 85% of all assault crimes in the Bay Area were black against Asian. 85% of all assault crimes were black against Asian. Small sample size, but that's because nationally your government looking out for you doesn't let you know who commits crimes and who the victims are. But you can make an inference, right? If 57% of the victims are white and 43% of the perpetrators are black, who only make up 12% of the population, hey, you saw Crash, though, so you don't want to be racist. You don't want to be racist if you're, let's say, in New York City, where a violent offender who is statistically more likely to be black committing a crime against an Asian person or a white person. You don't want to be racist, so you should walk right in as a completely helpless victim because you can't defend yourself with a firearm. Then you'll be excoriated by the mayor, by the New York City subway president, and potentially white women around you if you do anything.
Yeah.
You are now less safe. But the good news is cash bail and recidivism is up exponentially.
No cash bail.
You
don't even have to have it.
Oh, sorry. I said what? I said cash bail. Cash, I mean, no cash bail.
No cash.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You don't need any cash. It's just, I want to go.
Do you have anything to put down? No.
No, I do not.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So let me just do I understand this correctly? Me as a white man, right, and blonde hair, blue eyed, I'm not
very
screwed
white
in
man.
a lot of ways. If I see a black man committing a crime, I need to kind of like in the old days. Is there a doctor in the house? I have to go. Is there a black man willing to step in and stop this? But otherwise, it's racist.
I wouldn't say that because the black guy's going to think that you're being a smartass and beat you harder.
Oh,
yeah. Especially if you do it in that Dave Chappelle white guy voice.
Yeah.
Is there a black man who's willing to help me? Is this motherfucker getting smart with me? Beat him harder.
No, man.
Beat his white ass.
Brother, I said, is there a black man in the house that can help me?
Oh, my Lord.
now-
I don't even have a gun. I'm going to go find that shit just so I
can't
can
even
use it
say
on you.
That's a flogging.
And I will say this. I've talked about this on the show. We do black and white and the gray issues where I just talk with... You'd be surprised as to how much you have in common, but that's usually in areas where there's a mix of white and black people and they've learned to live together. When you have people who silo themselves into a culture that they view as exclusively black culture and the other white people, that's where you end up with gangs of 15. 15 beating a white boy to death.
Laughing.
Think about that. 15 black kids. Not one of them had a conscience. This is not normal. You will say violence has gone on in this country for decades, sure, but that type of collective just assault with a total lack of humanity is not something that has historically existed in this country. This was not the norm. If you want to say, hey, school shootings are up or mass shootings are up, when statistically that's not necessarily true, these kinds of interracial gang assaults are up. People know it. People see it. They're living it. And you want them to not believe their lying eyes and ears. And it always depends on if the criminal is convenient.
Watch Ladder with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.